Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Hi, and welcome to Reloscope, the Relationship Science Insights podcast produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. We are champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week, we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element with the expert knowledge of professionals in the field. I'm Marie Stella, your host from Melbourne, Australia. Let's start the show.
Hello and welcome back to Reloscope, the Relationship Science Insights podcast. We've all been through those moments in a relationship where your differences or something as minute as your significant other's quirks can feel like an orchestra of chaos, and you feel this immense pressure to fight through it, but you're not sure how to. Now, there's research out there where 65% of divorced couples said if they'd known more in the beginning about what it took for the longevity of a relationship, they might have been able to work it out. So today we're speaking to relationships and marriage therapist, Dr. Liz Jenkins, to learn more about how to identify sources of relationship stress and navigate through these as a couple. Hi, Liz. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm excited. I really am. I appreciate
Yeah.
this.
Me too. It's great to have you on the show. But before we get started, as a relationships and marriage therapist, what is the most common misconception you've heard about relationships?
Oh, wow. Okay. That they're supposed to be easy. All right. And that, people think, okay, well, the relationship must mean if we're meant to be together, that we're just going to be smooth sailing. We might have a few bumps in the road, but and so when real life hits a really good couple or one that's in the screen and we have those bumps or we have the fights or things like that, they start to question the value of the relationship or even like, did they make the right decision in the beginning?
Yeah, I do see a lot of that view being spread across social media as well. I am a frequent user of this platform called TikTok and
Okay.
Instagram as well,
No,
and
okay.
yeah, and I always see couples talking about how easy it should be if you're meant to be with someone, if it's the right person, it's this easy. What do you think this misconception stems from?
Okay. Well, I think it's social media, right? That's part of it, right? We just see people in shining examples of it. And there's several misconceptions or myths that we can talk about it. But in this particular one was that a perfect relationship has no stress. What we oftentimes see is we see a good couple sticking together and going through this. What we don't see is we don't see the divorce, right? And we don't see the clothes being thrown out on the lawn type of thing. And what it means is that this couple has had stress. Maybe it's finances. Maybe there's this job market, or there's the in-laws are coming in, which are all stressors. But they've figured out a way to communicate, to have fights, to agree, to disagree, all those things behind the scenes. And so what people look, something that looks great on the surface, there's a lot of real life practice going on behind the scenes. So that's one of the misconceptions. Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting and serves as a great preface for our topic for the day, actually. But before we go further into detail, I'd be really keen to hear about your interests aside from therapy and counseling. So, have you met Dr. Liz Jenkins? And my first question for you is, what do you enjoy doing in your spare time?
Okay. Let's see. I love, hanging out with my husband. We've been married like 36 years, things. Hanging out with our pups and our cats and things like that. But I enjoy just really getting outside. Sitting inside is a lot. So I love to go outside. We have a Texas pool. For the many of you that might know it, it's a very small, almost like a horse trough, and you kind of get in the water and get cold and get out in the sunshine. Sitting, having a glass of tea, a glass of Chardonnay, just really, I think for me, sometimes just getting out into nature. When we had horses, that was one of my passions too, going to ride the horses.
Oh, that is
Yeah.
so
And so,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah. So did you ever learn how to ride a horse?
Yes. Oh, yes. As a kid, and then as an adult, my 40th birthday present, my husband said, "Why don't you have a horse? You always want one." So we went and bought me one. And that morphed into 5 horses for 4 people. And so I rode Western, tried a little English, but one of our daughters rode English. And we had all sorts of
Oh,
stuff. Yeah. So
so when did you start horse riding?
is as a child, my
Yeah.
grandfather and grandmother had property out when we lived in Southern California. And so he had really nice horses. And so I learned how to, get to ride bareback and, reins. There were certain rules to say, sort of riding that way, and then had a few lessons. And then eventually, life and school and stuff stopped and went back to, we were in a place where I could go take some lessons again. And my passion rolled off to everyone else in the family. And so everyone had horses and everyone rode. And we did Western shows, and other daughters did jumping. And I like to go, we take your horse and with a nice bunch of people, and we go for long distance riding. So get all dirty and muddy and come back exhausted, but it was fun. So
That's amazing. I've always
Yeah.
wanted to learn how to ride a horse.
Oh, you should try it. It's really, really fun.
Yeah.
And they're really nice. They're nice critters.
I've heard it can
enjoyable.
be pretty demanding to, like, in terms of muscles.
You would be
Is
sore.
that right?
When you get finished riding, you will be sore. You'll have discovered new muscles, but that's okay, right? It's like going to the gym. But the rewards are so good, Lauren. And it's good
That
for your
does
soul.
sound, yeah,
Mhm.
it does sound a lot more fun and worth the soreness than going to the gym. I don't know. There's something about just working out with machinery that puts me off. I'd much rather do some kind of sport. Not that I actually do it, but a horse sounds
We all
incredible.
dream, right? We all dream.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. Okay. But yeah, horses are so fun, and they give as much as they get. But once you've been riding for a little bit and you start to get off your horse, like your legs will go like, oh, you were riding, weren't you? You haven't done this very
Yeah.
often, could they? So that's a good
Yeah,
thing.
and I imagine you're getting that sunlight because you're going outdoors to ride the horse, and you are getting that therapeutic, like, animal proximity.
Yeah,
And yeah.
you really kind of you get zen with yourself and zen with the horse, and even like I had a one cute little horse named Star, and so if I rode him in the morning or like lunchtime, it was zen. We were perfectly aligned, and I started finding out when I started riding him after a full day of work, 5 o'clock or so. All of a sudden, gosh, he wouldn't take the right lead when I was getting the horse, and I realized it's not the horse, it was me. I had so much stress and tension, and I was just transmitting it to him, and I was missing his cues, and he was just letting me know that you needed like to just do a little yoga or zen before you get on me, because my body was carrying it. So they can teach us a lot of things too, but it's good.
Aw,
I highly
yeah.
recommend you find some place where you can just go for a little
That
ride.
that sounds incredibly fulfilling. Now, during your spare time, are there any books, films, or TV shows that you like to keep up with?
I'm started learning how to play the guitar and the banjo. My husband gave me a little Taylor mini one, scaled down for me, and then he had an extra banjo, so I'm starting to learn that. And so I do a Tony's Acoustic. That's not a plug, but Tony Acoustic little video training. So I take some lessons online and practice, and then I practice with my husband. And there's a really cool book that I started reading. Again, my husband, he's brilliant. He comes to these things and says, hey, I think you might like this. But it's called Brain Joe. And Brain Joe is a book. It's written by a neurologist, a neuroscientist who also plays the guitars and plays the banjo and has this really cool YouTube channel. But he's talking about how to basically hack the best parts of your brain and how um, learning new things, we can redo better neural paths and grow the brain and develop better talents and skills. And it struck me when I was reading this. That's my what my husband. I knew you'd find a way to apply that to your couple's work. And what I was doing was looking at it, was like, this book is showing me how I can learn how to make my fingers go in a direction that they haven't gone before. And that same technique and that same biological phenomena that happens in our brains is what I can help couples respond differently to their normal knee jerk or angry or shutting down with a partner, to learn how to go, wait, stop. I have a different way to respond to this. And so teaching them new strategies actually helps them remap the brain and remap the old trauma stuff that they had or the old maybe past relationship fights. And they're able to basically renew and make that response better, faster, and actually grow your brain, fight the aging. So yeah, it's been fun. So
That's incredible, the
yeah,
way you
those brain
managed to
chill.
turn that and apply it to your work. So, are there any exercises that you teach to the couples with regards to this neuro mapping thing?
Well, first of all, because I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I really pivoted into the connection coaching for coaches, for couples, because what I was finding is there was things about therapy that was repeating the old problems. And the platform of therapy that I was doing, and people said, we bring couples together and we talk about the problems. Okay, that's creating that groove again, all problems. But then we send them out with very little support and very little strategies. And okay, yep, we opened up this one. And so with the coaching, I'm coming in to talk about successful people, right? And they needing to learn something new. And so I'm giving them right there in the moment specific strategies or skills that they may be lacking. And so there's a lot of practicing and rehearsal and letting life happen with my support. And so when I'm talking to a couple, first I'm like, you guys, you're good. Like we talked about that misconception that, only successful relationships are smooth. And then if you're having problems or stress, there's something wrong with you. I debunk that myth right there. I say, this is good. You're here. Let's talk about the strengths. You haven't given up on each other. And I'm giving them very, I would say, quick wins that bring that enthusiasm and bring that encouragement so they stick it with it and they start to see the benefits of their efforts. Same thing for me when I'm learning the guitar. If I'm thunking and not doing stuff, when I have that quick win or I have the support from some of the trainings, or I go ask my husband, like, which way do my fingers go again? Even so something's picking. Not so good. I was special in picking. But when I get those wins, it brings my enthusiasm up and I want to continue. I feel successful. I don't feel, like a failure. And that I'm bringing that into my work with my couple. So my couples start to see all of the hard work, all of the good things about themselves, start to go like, oh my gosh, I did marry a great woman or a great man. And then they'll be able to say, I'm in it. And so that enthusiasm builds change and builds momentum.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing that you managed to apply it to your work too. And yeah, I absolutely have to agree. I think like a lot of people just when you get consumed by the stress of a relationship, you just tend to look at the disadvantages, I guess, or like what the negative parts of what you're feeling right now, and you completely forget to take each other kind of you completely forget to just appreciate each other. And one thing that I found has been really helpful too is just whenever there's an argument or like some kind of heated discussion, just stop for like a minute and say nice things to each other, and then you can resume the discussion. Oftentimes the discussion is so pared down compared to like what it would have been, and I think yeah, that's pretty similar to what you were sharing as well. Um, and I feel like we learned a bit more about you with your banjo practices, with your guitar, and the horses as well. So it's been such a pleasure. But now we're moving on to the interview section. Um,
Absolutely. Let's go for it. Looking
the
forward.
first, yeah, the first question that we have is, what is a relationship to you? How would you describe it?
Okay. I think a relationship, there isn't a set um, perfect relationship. A relationship to me is when folks have found interest, passion, compatibility. There's a mutual benefit. They're feeling good about being with that other person. And many times people start relationships for reasons that aren't necessarily romantic, but they're still valid. I have many couples that started as a committed couple and then as a married couple because one maybe had a health issue and they were together and they were feeling really good, but they needed health insurance and they needed to be married. And so they got into that. And so for them, their relationship started off at this level, went way up here, and then they were coming back into maintain, rediscovering each other. And so if you're feeling good about being with the other person, if you are interested and you look forward to them and they do the same, that's one of the things of a relationship. Committed relationship is maybe a little bit different than a dating, was significantly different than a dating relationship. And so I think each of those have different criteria or necessary items to move you along in a successful way.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. And when it comes to relationship stress, what is your definition of it?
Okay. You know what? Okay. It's when the outside or the inside things, big things, little things, start to create that crack, that tension in a couple. And for many people, you might say, okay, I know it's finances, or it's the in-laws, or it's the jobs. Each couple comes together, and there's different things that kind of rock their boat. And I'll talk about that in a second. But it's they did a study of what were some of the top reasons that people divorce, and I think you kind of hinted about it. And they were coming up with some surprising facts because the researchers found that if the folks that had divorced, in hindsight, said if we had have known that this was simply relationship stress and not the death toll for a relationship, we would not have divorced. And the top ones were career choices. That was a relationship stress. Parenting differences, division of household chores. You go from an apartment maybe to all of a sudden you have a house and a yard and all those type of things. Relationship with family, relationship with friends, and finance. And I thought finance was going to be higher up on the list, but they said no. It according to the study of folks that had divorce, this was sort of the hierarchy of it. And so if we go back to the question of what is relationship stress, well, we're talking along where this young couple, or even not a young couple, and one of us gets a career advancement. This is a good stress, right? Because there's good stress. This is great. You have more money over this. Well, all of a sudden, the dynamic in that relationship changes. Maybe the person that got the advancement is now spending more time at the office instead of being at home. Maybe that's incorporated with travel. Who knows? And the rules and the roles, like who's going to pick the kids up from the school or take care of the pets or help out with dinner, they shift. So even a good thing can shake that relationship. And we want to know that if we're feeling off balance, I think you spoke very clear about, Maria, that we're looking at the things that are going wrong and we're hanging on to the complex and stuff. That's one of those cracks in a relationship. If we're starting to focus on all the things that are wrong instead of being able to get some perspective or talk about it or find gratitude or something valuable in our partner, those are, part of the warning signs. There's other warning signs, and I can talk a little bit more about that if you want to hear about some of the other ones.
Yeah, I'd love to hear some more warning signs, actually.
Okay, all right. So relationship stress can show up with some of the where you start like avoiding each other. You may feel like there's eggshells. I don't want to talk about this. You knew I had this job. I have to travel, and now you're complaining because you're stuck with the kids. That type of stuff. So we start to avoid each other, or we start to not even want to voice our opinions. Simple discussions that maybe have nothing to do supposedly about the job. They explode. We might feel like we're walking in eggshells, or we're just really just angry and resentful. And I would put a pin drop kind of that resentment. Resentment is almost like rust on a car in a relationship. If you're feeling a lot of resentment and you're feeling bitter about your spouse, your partner, that is really important to start looking at, because it slowly, almost invisibly deteriorates the value you see in them and the value of staying in the relationship. So there's other kinds of stress. Maybe you guys don't have any intimate relationships, or you don't even want to have fun, don't even have fun together. The stress is so bad that you can't find anything fun to do together. Those could be some of the worrisome signs.
And once a couple has identified, or one person in the couple has identified that the relationship stress has gone to quite a significant point, what would be the best ways to overcome that?
Well, I think I think it first really starts with us individually to start get a little bit of an inventory. It's like, what am I feeling? What am I noticing? What am I seeing? Because relationships are systems. I guess that's one of the things too we want to describe a relationship. Relationships are systems, and where two people come together, and the things that impact me also have some kind of an impact on, in this case, my hubby, and vice versa. And so as I start to walk around with resentment, and I just keep it, I start avoiding them, or I start to have a sharper tone, or I pick petty fights, or I make plans and don't tell them about it. Those things, while they're not a big thing, they start to erode and they impact the system. And he is also going to have a response or a reaction to me, let's say, being silent, just getting up and going and doing my own thing, or snapping at him. He may snap back. He may shut down. He may, one of the things is to get honest about how we're showing up, and what do we see that now that was different in the early days. If we go back to the early days, they're going to give us some clues about what we enjoyed, why we got together, what was fun, and what's missing. And another thing that couples would need to do is pick the timing to have a discussion. I know you said, okay, you could be in the middle of this discussion, heated discussion, and you can take a moment and say nice things to people. And my hat's off to you, because not a lot of people can go from being angry, which is flooded, and having this emotional start, to go back to like thinking something nice. If they can, they're not going to be saying it in a very nice way. I appreciate you taking out the trash.
Yeah.
Only thing I don't know is, why didn't you stay outside with the trash? That kind of like, rare. Okay. So having conversations means we want to understand what's going on, and we want to maybe get back to the good spots. So what are some of the tips and the strategies we do in the work world? We if we're going to have a meeting with somebody, we maybe pick a time that works for both of us, ideally. We let them know what the purpose of the meeting is going to be, almost like a little bit of agenda. The same thing goes for our spouses, our partners. We want to make the timing. And so we say, hey, Marie, I want to talk to you when you get a chance, or is different. And I just want to talk about the fight last night about, feeding the dogs too much. All right. And so like, okay, now it's not a good time, but later on, after I get the kids to bed or after whatever, yeah, I'm good. Or today I'm too tired. Can we talk about it tomorrow morning? Great. And we listen to them and we put that pin drop on our calendar and we circle back and we go, okay, we're still good. Still good. We wanted to talk about the feeding the dogs because I think they're getting too fat. Let's say that. And it's sometimes people have really particular, no treats for them and green bean to this one time. So whatever it is, it's unique for couples. But we want to talk. So we want to pick the timing. That's so much better than ambushing the person. Say, hey, let's talk about now. Or when they're getting ready to go to bed, it just unwound. They're in the bed. It's supposed to be like a unwinding time. And so many of my couples pick that time to start fighting. Before we just gonna have a conversation, and then it turns into this 2 or 3 hour. All right. So, timing, agenda, and if it's not working for the other person, you guys pick a different time. Then you go. And so, what do we talk about, and how do we talk about it? We want to remember to avoid certain keywords and gestures, like pointing at the other person. You always ignore my thing. I told you the dog is getting too fat. You can't have, food off your table, whatever it might be. I'm doing this and I told you type of thing. It's very attacking and it's going to land on with very poor results. We want to get back to starting with what our concern is, because we want them to understand what's going on in their head. They're not mind readers. They have different preferences. Maybe they feel that table scraps are 100% okay. And you're feeling like, no, but they're not. And so we go back, I'm afraid, or, I understand you see differently, but here's my concern. I'm afraid that if we keep feeding them this X, Y, or Z, that he's going to get fat, and let them reading them, that prematurely ages them, and this pup is everything I've ever had. Okay, cool. We start off with letting the other person know why it's important to them. Remember, there's a time when you loved them, they loved you, walked on clouds, and you need to help them understand that importance so they can get on board with you. And in turn, you need to be able to wait and hear it. So help me understand. Okay, get curious. Help me understand why the table scraps keep getting in their dish. All right. So you can get curious with them, like, look, I've been doing some research too. And X, Y, or Z vet says they need to have real meat in addition to the kibbles. Okay. What do we do with that? Opposing values. Do we go get an expert to help us? Do we do some research? Do we cut back on a little of this? Do we give? That's the part of coming together and coming to a place that works for both of you. And again, not all topics are going to work for everybody. And successful couples know that agreeing to disagree is huge. There's also research that shows that 69% of the topics that couples have, they're never going to agree on. You're never going to convince me. But we go to the 31% that they do agree on. Okay, that's the wins. And then we go back to the 69. Let's say the 69th one is this table scrap debate. And we just kind of say, okay, we're going to have to take that off the table, put it over here, and we'll try to revisit it later. And in the meantime, we circle back.
Yeah, I really like the work meeting analogy. I feel like that really helps with compartmentalizing these discussions apart from away from your regular winding down time. That would really, really help. But with avoiding certain language and certain gestures and, trying to pare it down to the main concern and, there's certain situations where the concern is largely emotion based, and so there isn't, well, some people I think would probably find it difficult to back up these emotions. And so do you have any thoughts on how that would work?
Absolutely. And it's such an astute point there, because emotions aren't going to be convinced by facts. So, no, if I feel that my dog, you know, is going to die from eating too much table scraps, I'm feeling that. And no matter how much research you can throw at me, we're still not impacting the feeling. And so many of my couples come with, I call different brains, all right? Which we all have a brain, but there's different brains. And I always ask them, what do you do for a living? What do you like to? Because we'll have some very intuitive, emotionally astute, and then we have some that are just really linear and logical, and everything lines up, and all programmers and engineers and architects, those kind of brains. And so it doesn't make sense to one, and the other one's like, I'm explaining myself. So understand, understand, if you keep explaining yourself and you're not getting the result, if I can maybe escalate it, it's time to stop. Put a pin drop it. Okay, let's take a break. One, both of you guys might be flooded. We go from the logical part of our brain back to that fight, flight, or freeze. There is no way that we're going to even logically hear out your argument. And so getting back, getting zen, getting our heart rate down, getting our breath under control is really important. When there's a conversation that's not going too well or a fight, I ask folks to do a timeout, very much like you had said, the call a name, a gesture. And when you break from that moment, first thing you're going to do is write down what you were fighting about. All right. And put it on your phone, put a piece of paper, but just hold on it, get calm. And then you guys agree to come back, because we first want to see, like, are we fighting about the same thing? All right. We're talking about the dog's weight. All right. Let's say with the dog. Hope everybody out there likes dogs and like dog weight, but here we go. So we fight about the dog's weight, and okay, we agree. They're a couple pounds over. So then we want to go into help me understand. And so oftentimes you'll have exactly what says, well, I'm afraid, or I feel. You want to hear the words. I'm afraid the dog's just going to get this, really bad disease. And then, his joints are going to go out. It's going to have to hip replacement that runs in golden retrievers. And, and so those are the feeling words. All right. And you're going to have to back up and say, okay, help me understand what it feels like to be worried about losing him, or that we're doing, well, I feel like I'm a bad parent. I feel like I'm a bad pet parent. I don't feel like I ever do enough. And then they take you down this whole other rabbit hole that has nothing to do with the table scraps, really. It has about the person's sense of feeling responsible for a lot of people, or maybe past failures or past losses. So if you're on the fact side and trying to logically listen to your partner's words, if you're on the feeling side and they're not hearing you and they just keep throwing the things out, stop a second and realize you both are coming at it with two different languages, and you want to back up and let the one that has more of the facts air that out and say, I can see where you're understanding this, but let me tell you what my concerns are. Again, what am I worried about? I just don't trust. All right, that's enough feeling. I don't trust these facts. They lie to us all the time. So that's part of what you want to be able to be doing, because if you're trying to fight. Like, have you ever tried to talk someone out of being sad? Don't be sad. Come on, cheer up. Have you ever tried to talk yourself out of being sad? It doesn't work. It doesn't feel like that. There's this emotion that has to be released or addressed or and eased out. And so you're not going to be able to talk them in that moment, or they're not going to be able to talk you.
Yeah, that's such good advice. I feel like a lot of this relationship stress is so much to do with communication and just trying to learn the other person's language, not necessarily speaking it, but at least learning how they receive things and learning how to put it in their words, if that makes sense. So that was really, really well, it's like so detailed. But, you know, when the relationship stress gets to a point where it's almost unresolved, is there any kind of, I don't know, saving grace at all? Or what kind of what signs are there?
When it's unresolvable and they're like
Yeah.
heading for the cliff called divorce
Yeah.
or breakup. Yeah, there is, I want to say, a light at the end of the tunnel. Many times people feel like because we just keep fighting, the relationship is doomed, right? And I'm more concerned if a couple isn't fighting. And I know that kind of sounds maybe counterintuitive, but if a couple is fighting and they just don't understand, I keep asking them to do this, it means they're still invested in the relationship. They're still trying, but they're pointing across the other person. If I'm seeing the couple like, I'm careless, whatever. Sure, whatever they want to do, I don't care. They're already detaching from that relationship. They've stopped caring what the other person's doing. They stop caring about the end result. So that's something to be aware of and concerned with. If you're feeling like it's over, one of the things that you want to be able to do is sit back and recognize, what have you done to try to change it? Is it all self, at home kind of thing? Have you looked at social media and tried to study, some of these, they look like they've got it going good, or they look like got it going. Who are you hanging out with? Are you hanging out with folks that have also recently been divorced? Because I know that sounds kind of funny, but it can often be more of the default because we see our close friends go through a divorce and we thought they'd never divorce, and now we're having problems, so maybe we should go to divorce. So it's kind of a false logic. So I really recommend getting out and getting an objective third person into your world and just chat with them. A therapist, a connection coach like me, if they help us understand. So they're going to be able to give you a more objective, professional viewpoint. It's so often we go to, if we're fortunate enough, we have close friends or maybe family members, and we go and we ask them questions. But it's also important not to continually bring our problems to the other people, because let's say I had a sister and I always brought my grievances to my sister, right? All she knows is the bad things about my husband. She doesn't know that, this week, he didn't this week, he goes and does grocery shopping while I'm busy doing something. He comes back and he brought me flowers, and because he knows I like to put the flowers together in flower arrangements and put them all through the house. And, the recent rains that just ruined all my roses.
Yeah.
That's fairly thoughtful. But I probably, if I'm mad, aren't going to bring that, and I'm not going to take that to my sister like, oh my gosh, look what he did, I'm going to say about the other stuff that he didn't do. So she's going to get a distorted perception because it's just mine. And so we want to be really careful about how we share those grievances. Also, it doesn't take two people to keep a marriage or a relationship going in this short term. If you still are invested in the relationship for whatever reason, if you still love them and you remember the good times and you want the good times back, you can start making changes for yourself for the relationship that's going to impact that. And no, this is not codependent or not all things. It means that relationships are systems. And if I show up snarky, it's going to have that ripple effect on the relationship. If I show up petty or grumpy, right? But if I show up with some gratitude and some patience, if I show up with different languages and different way of interacting, instead of like avoiding them, like I try to come and join them, see what they're doing, they're going to feel it. Maybe at first it's not going to move the needle very much, but it will. It will also help you start to see the relationship differently. And so a lot of times I have my folks, there's one really fun activity I have them do, and it's to build, it's to remind them of the reasons that they fell in love with each other, and also build that sense of gratitude and exchange. Because when couples have gotten to the point that you're talking about, like we're on the cliff, they probably haven't been feeling heard, and they probably haven't been feeling like their requests are being met. So I have them write down 3 things they absolutely love about their partner as a reason why they married them or became committed with them. That they never want them to stop those 3 things. And then they get 3 things that they want them to do less of, and 3 things they want them to do more of. And they have them write those lists, and then they read them to each other. And you start with the 3 things you absolutely love about them. And I get so much of a kick of watching a couple that kind of comes in like, yeah, that's it. You can just feel the energy. She's like, yeah, so we've had a good day, haven't we? And then they start reading them, and then like, you like my sense of humor, and you think that's funny? Yeah, and then you have that goofy laugh. I know. They start to re-engage, and they get to feel excited, and it gets to feel, I don't know. It's just like they're starting to open up and realize that they're being appreciated, and they aren't as bad as they were. And then when we go to the things that they ask them to do more or do less of, and they choose them, and they practice them for a week, they come back that week and like, oh my gosh, they heard me. I can't believe it. And what's it feel like? Hey, it feels fantastic. All right. I mean, just like it's not a little gesture, it's a big thing. But like my husband at the market, and he goes and gets these clusters of flowers that I have to put together. He didn't buy a whole pre-made bouquet, and he didn't just walk past it, and he says, hey, I'm just going to get her the flowers and she can build something. That's a big thing to me. Mm-hmm. It's maybe $12 investment, and that he could have walked to rent or spent more, but he remembered he brought it home, and I had a great time, and he had fun watching me. And all the time around the house that the flowers are there, they're constant reminders and visuals of how special he is and how thoughtful he is to me. And I'm grateful for that. And so, because that leads me into the other thing. When you're feel like you're off the deep end with it, look around your house and think, how many positive reminders are there? Were there good pictures of you guys' relationships, or are they all on your phone, buried someplace? Are any of the fun things that you guys did out there? The fun things that you used to do maybe in the early days, are you doing them? Are you, maybe you used to cook in the kitchen, and now it's like, it's your turn to cook. I'll be out there, Or I had one couple that they met, dated, courted, and fell in love through music. And when they came to me, they were one of those. The cliff was coming for the relationship and for the marriage. And so when we said, and they said music, we went to clubs, we went dancing. I said, oh, okay, what's your favorite? What do you play at your house? Nothing. They had no Alexa on the counter, no music that played, anything like that. And so they started doing that. They started playing the music in the morning when they got up and made the coffee and went to work. It came on when they came home, and they started doing dinner. And the energy level because music's cool, right? It also
Mhm.
brings our moods up. But the energy level, they said, was a game changer. They would be could be doing something, and the other person would watch by, be bopping and make them smile, and then they stroll into a dance. They were way away from the cliff by the time they finished in a couple of weeks. Chatting
They
with me.
they should
Yeah.
totally sit down and listen to an album together or something and give each other notes and
That,
do that like every 2 weeks or something.
they would, yeah, that would be it. Or like create their playlists and stuff that they absolutely
Yeah.
love. Yeah. The music connoisseurs. I could see them going back when we used to have the record shops. I could see them now going, let's go to the vintage record shops. And, vintage. Let's go find some vinyls and, or whatever type of thing. And let's pick up some of our favorite songs and do that. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
guess, yeah, think back in your relationship. What were the fun things? And could you jumpstart it with something like that?
yeah, it's great to hear that that musical couple. I'm going to call them musical couple now.
I like that. Yeah, they're
It's great to
musically
hear that.
still married. Okay, they're
Yeah.
musically still married. Okay.
It's great to hear that the musical couple have found reignited their spark for each other through what they fell in love through in the first place. But yeah, I feel like we've learned quite a lot from you about relationship stress and how that works, all of the warning signs. That was incredibly helpful. Now we'll move on to the practices and habits section. And this is where we ask you a bit more about the everyday application of what you've shared with us. So the first question I have is, what is a habit that you recommend practicing to keep relationship stress from snowballing?
Okay. I think that we need to, as couples, check in with each other. All right. Uh, Many people, even when they're telecommuting for their job, they lose contact with themselves, and they actually are spend more time involved in their work than they do with a partner and spouse. And that's understandable. That's one of those things that a lot of us have to do. But in the early days, maybe we had less moving parts. Maybe we didn't have as demanding of a career or as kids or critters or house or type of thing. And so I highly recommend that my couples check in with themselves, with each other every single day. It can be just a simple text message. It's better if you have to be far apart, if you could do a quick little FaceTime, but I get that. Sometimes you can't. It's, how are you feeling? I'm feeling this. It's, when you come home, stop a moment, put yourself down and look them in the eye. I know there's a lot of, pressure to get going, or you just want to get out of your work clothes and things like that. It's so, but really having a chance to see the other person, to breathe a moment and say, how are they doing? They don't look like they're doing good. Or I could use something. So when couples check in every day with each other, and then they check in on maybe spend a little bit more time on the Saturday type of thing, or Sunday or the weekend when you have more time and you can talk about things. It's important for couples to check in daily, weekly, and monthly. And I'll tell you the kind of big things. The daily stuff is more of like the little speed hits. How are you doing? I'm thinking about you. I miss you. In fact, some of my posts on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok are about, Monday compliments. Okay. So you go off to work and traditional, Monday through Friday, you go off on Monday and you want to give them a compliment, about the gratitude. I enjoyed this, or I like this about you, or I miss you. On Friday, you get ready to the weekend, set that vibe. Say something flirty to them. Give them, whether it's a text or emoji, or it's a phone call, voice message. I'm looking forward to it, or let's do something fun together. Let's build that energy and that interest in being with the person, even if it's a day at home or a weekend at home where you've got a lot of clean out the garage. It doesn't have to be expensive. It can be free, and so you're setting that energy. On the weekend, when you have a little more space, people tend to be a little more relaxed. Let's sit down and talk about the wins for the week. How are they doing? What was good? What was bad? Let's talk about some of the things that are maybe starting to bubble up on your plate. I'm starting to feel, oh, I'm just so pressured. I got this and I've got that. I just don't know what to do. Um, don't keep it to yourself. And also, we don't want to like spring it on the other person when we're having this meltdown. If we can, I mean, sometimes, but we want to get comfortable having like non like 911 conversations with our spouse, so that when we sit down and talk, we're not going like, what I do wrong? We're having a talk. Oh, here, it's got to be bad because, we don't want that. All right. And on a monthly basis, we want to kind of maybe we just reevaluate. We do it in business, right? We have team meetings. We have, if we're in financial, as we go, how we do on our numbers. If we're in education, like how's our attendance going? What are the kids' scores doing? And so we want to sit down and kind of have more of the hearty talk, but it's how are we doing on the budget? What are we anticipating property taxes looking like? Summer's coming. Kids want to go on this vacation, but I don't even know if we're going to be able to swing that. What are your thoughts? So we're starting to have this practice because successful couples have practiced good communication. They've had a lot of flops, but they keep getting up and they keep trying it. And that's what I want you guys to be able to do, is that when you see your special person coming to you, it's not a, oh, what did I do wrong? And when they see you coming, it's like, here she comes. What's right. going on? Type of thing. So that's part of habits, daily habits. I shared a little bit about using the I statements. I'm worried. I feel. Though here's something that is sometimes overlooked, is that typically in a relationship we have fighting zones, and so maybe we wait till the kids go to bed, and then we go, or to have a fight, we go into our bedroom, or we go into the closet, or maybe we sit down at the kitchen table, we had dinner, and then we have this fight. So that becomes a fighting zone. You probably know. Everybody has different fighting zones. I really recommend couples have conversations out away from those fighting zones. We're funny critters. And if there's been a disaster in one area and we go back to that area, oftentimes we're re-triggered and we're feeling or sensing or anticipating. Anticipation's a big one. Nothing's valid there, but we're still thinking it might happen. And so our heart rate goes up, we start to get a little more stress, and we anticipate there's going to be a problem. So go in a fresh zone. Go, pick a different room. If you have a patio or a balcony, go there. Going for a walk is really wonderful because movement helps us naturally relax and de-stress, and seeing things that are going on can help you unwind. And even while you're having tough conversations, you're also doing something that sort of helps you relax or do something with that tension.
Yeah, that's an incredibly comprehensive list of habits that we should now be keeping up with.
Well, we should. Just aim for grabbing a few that work for you. How's that? There's no shoulds. It's just try what you can.
I was wondering how the fighting zones thing would work for me, just because sometimes I feel like my heated discussions can turn into fights. And I'm wondering do I have to preempt when there's a fight coming up and be like, hold on, I think that we are about to fight, so we have to go into the storeroom now. Is that how it works?
Well, it can be like, hey, I noticed that we before things, I noticed that when we're in what room might be a fighting room for you?
Probably the storage room, just because do some work in my study, and
Okay.
I would really like to feel a bit more zen in my study. And I would like to keep the bedroom as my bedroom, the
Okay.
sanctuary, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we had that conversation. Look, sometimes we have these fights, all right? And I want to be like, when I go into my office, it's like it's a zen room. It's just inspiration and not frustration. And the bedroom, I want it to be us and intimate stuff. So how about, like, if we're gonna have, if something feels like we're having this conversation and we're not going anywhere, and it's kind of escalating, that we pause and maybe we take it to the storage room. Sometimes we can even think in that moment, do you really want to do this right now? Do we really want to, like, sometimes even because you're starting to get this self-awareness, like, no, I don't want to do it, or yes. And so, yeah, let's just go into the room and let's just talk about it. And so then, like, okay, before we go any further, let me write down, this is what I'm fighting about. What are you fighting about? Like, okay, yeah, we're on the same topic. Let's go. So sometimes, but if you share that with your partner, you share that with your spouse, like, I just want, I just want to keep these like clean rooms, right? You don't want to have any drama in there. I have couples that just don't have significant conversations, say past 10 o'clock at night. I have others that have found, as they got more comfortable looking at their stuff, that Thursday and Fridays, they're really tired by the end of the day, end of the week, their energies are low. So they're more likely to have what they call petty fights. They're more easily agitated or upset. So they just kind of said, we're just going to, like, be nice and say, Saturday, let's talk. And after they get a good night's sleep, or sometimes I have one couple that does on Sundays, and they just sit out with, coffee or whatever. And this one couple likes to just throw open the garage door, and it's nice weather where they live, and sitting in chairs, and the rest of the house is there, and they just talk about the hard stuff or talk about what was going on, and it's working really well. Their fights are feeling like they're more focused and not in control. They can still get really angry and upset with each other, but they're extremely manageable and they haven't been devastating. So for that couple, conflict rates are a higher level than maybe some of the other couples. I have another couple that goes for walks, and they're a much quieter finding. They're equally hurt or frustrated, but it's quieter. And now they're having good, completing conflict conversations. They won't be as loud as the garage couple, but they are equally upset and able to resolve things.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. I feel like I learned so much from you. Now we're moving on to the open mic section, and this is your chance to talk about anything that you're passionate about that doesn't have to be related to the topic. So the floor is yours. Take it away.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, obviously, if I can read about Brain Joe and apply it to my couples, that is one of my passions, is because I saw so many really, really great couples that got the wrong information. And been doing this for years, and I saw so much misinformation out there, or they just didn't even know where to look and get the healthy things. And so it's become my passion to help couples go from feeling discouraged and disconnected. And I mean, there's some of them that have been like 5 therapists, and they're going like, well, you're our last shot. And that's a great honor for me. But I feel all those years of, and maybe some of you out there have been in relationships or had the conversations where it just feels like it's the same fights over and over, and it gets discouraging. It wears you down. And so I want to, like, there are ways to interrupt that. You can start on your own. The old myth was that you had to take 2, and no, if one person can start showing up and providing information and using it and applying it, it's going to impact their relationship. 9 times out of 10, that your partner there is like, they're acting different. They're being different. You're going to, at some level, start to respond to you showing gratitude, showing appreciation, asking to hear their opinion, being more curious than accusing them, and knowing that, hey, I don't want to do this right now. Can we just take a break? All those things that are really, really effective to keep the mood down. And no, it's not all on you. But as you start showing up different, the relationship starts softening and you come together. And so that's why I've worked with, I've created my Couple Smart Restart Sprint. And it is a program that I've developed, taking everything from the therapy side and the coaching side and blended it in a way that couples very quickly get an accurate research-based, I would say, assessment of the strengths of the relationship, as well as gaps or opportunities. We always play off of our strengths, right? We want to keep doing the things that we do well, and then we want to retrain those other strategies. Remember, brain Joe, we're going to retrain, we're going to create new neural path, new associations, new strategies that are really kind of fun and simple, to reconnect in a way that feels different, but brings you guys back together again. And some of it is that we just get into really old habits and ruts. We start taking our spouses and each other for granted. Many couples, I talk about, so let's say please and thank you, and make sure you let the other person know when you're running late. Like, why? Yeah, they'll know when I get in. And something like, okay, but if so we go back to having some of these manners and we put this freshness into them. And so in my Couple Smart Restart, we do a foundations first assessment. We have private chats with me. And then we do a relationship roadmap, and all of these, their input, my observations, my expertise and assessment come together, and I help them very clearly map out what are the next steps that they need to very quickly, that's why I call it the sprint, get the momentum and come together and reconnect in a way that's even better than it was before. And a lot of people say, how can you do that? But it is really based on the kind of state of the art and the research. And so that is my passion, honestly, to help these couples feel better about themselves, love their relationship, love their life, and start leaving a legacy of love by example, because, you know, it shows up in their kids. Their kids start learning how to have better conversations. They're watching their parents. They're using that out in their peer groups. And so they're building better friendships. So we're starting ground level and getting our own kids on a better path to choose better, make better choices in life, friendships, careers, future spouses. And our pets, it's interesting. But for all those of you who have pets, just survey, keep an eye out. When you're having a fight or an argument, or even one of those silent ones, when you're walking on eggshells, where are your animals? Some will have like, oh, they're doing it, and they'll slightly slide off the couch if you let them do, or they're on their beds and they'll go to another room. Others will gently like start to slide into your laps, and they're trying to comfort you. They pick up on the tension. They pick up on the vibe. And so, one, by learning to handle it differently, it's being nice to your critters as well as your kids. But two, if you're not always aware of where your energy level is, look and see where your animals are. Look and see where your kids are. If they're crawling a bit, or they're all, I don't know, they were here a minute. Yeah, but it's their favorite show. They're gone. They can feel it a little bit like an earthquake coming. So, yeah, so that's my passion. And I want people to just know that there's help out there, and they can always follow me. I have a YouTube channel, Dr. Liz Jenkins, and I have a lot of freebies like the connection checklist that I was mentioning. There's a downloadable, so they can take it, use it, customize it for their own, for their own needs. And I have other things like which one of my favorite books was about the love languages, but I was getting to hate this book. I think because this was a book that was bringing a lot of couples into my office, because they didn't read the book, right? I bought the book. It's important to me. I have my book here, and I gave them a copy, and it's there. And damn, they aren't reading it. It's just they're green dust. And then they fight about the book that they're not reading. And the other person says, well, I'm not reading the book now because we're fighting about it. It was supposed to be free will, free choice. And so I have a short little video and a quick little download so that you don't have to read the book. You can watch it in about 5 minutes and get the gist of it, and they'll be able to read each other's love language and move on. So
amazing. We'll link those all in the show notes. Thank you so much, Dr. Liz Jenkins, for joining us today. I feel like I've said this 5 times now, but I definitely learned so much from you. It's been such an insightful conversation, particularly for me.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with you too.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate you joining us today. And thank you everyone for tuning in to Reloscope, the Relationship Science Insights podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you in the next one.
You've been listening to Reloscope, the Relationship Science Insights podcast produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. For more episodes like this from 10 different life management perspectives, search LMSL on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, so you can get updated on everything we have to offer. We have a wide range of topics readily available for you to check out. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider rating our show, sharing it, and subscribing to our channel, as it helps us grow and bring you more quality resources. More of our work can be found on our website at re.lmsl.net, where you can join our movement. I'm Marie Stella. Thanks for tuning in.